road agents, vigilantes, the gallows, all the components necessary to make a great Wild West legend, including an infamous outlaw sheriff. Join me, Joanna Skye, as I explore the controversial life of Henry Plummer and to see if we can find his missing gold in the hills of Montana on this week's Lost Legends of the West. In the early 1860s, the Civil War was raging in the East. In the West, small mining towns were booming, with everyone focusing on the huge battles between the North and the South. There was little or no attention to the violence in the new, lawless towns of the West. Two towns just a few miles apart in Montana were alive with gold rush fever. They were Virginia City and Bannack, and one man was elected by the people to serve as sheriff of both, Henry Plummer. Obviously respected by the townspeople, he was also known to have a short temper at times, but also to have been popular with the ladies. He soon made several friends deputies and had a reputation for getting the job done. For example, he built Bannack's first gallows to let the folks know he meant to bring order to the town. Gallows were just a simple, makeshift wooden frame, usually located on a hill, with a great view of the town. On the route between Virginia City and Bannack, robberies were very common. Rumors claim that Plummer's deputies were involved. Speculation even says that Plummer himself was the head of this notorious gang known as the Road Agents. To stop the Road Agents, a group of vigilantes formed and were on a mission to bring order to the small towns. They put word out that anyone involved with the Road Agents would be hung. One night, after heavy discussion about the leadership of the Road Agents and some heavy drinking, they boldly decided it was time to put an end to the disorder, and to put an end to it now. Meanwhile, back at Henry Plummer's residence, he was getting ready for a quiet night in with his wife. As he began to shave, he was abruptly interrupted by vigilante intruders. They violently captured him, took him from his home, and drug him through the main street of Bannack in the direction of one place, the gallows. As Henry Plummer struggled to break free, the vigilantes got closer to the gallows. It was a long path, and there was nothing Henry Plummer could do. The drunk and rowdy crowd cheered as the vigilantes strung Plummer to the fixture he built. Plummer remained calm and showed no fear. As the rope tightened, Plummer gave in to one last attempt to free his life. He claimed he would show them where $300,000 in gold was buried if they let him go. But it was too late. The vigilantes had had enough, and with one kick of the log stool, Henry Plummer, the outlaw sheriff, was dead. He remained there for several days for all to see, and as an example that the vigilantes were now in control. The town of Bannack only thrived for another year or two, while Virginia City continued to be heavily populated over the next couple years, and the war in the East came to an end. Years passed, with no one discovering buried gold near the old western towns of Bannack and Virginia City, until now. Hi, I'm Joanna Skye, and join me as I head into the heartland of Montana and dig up information on this infamous outlaw sheriff, Henry Plummer, and with a little luck, dig up his lost gold on this week's Lost Legends of the West.
Every legend has some truth. Every truth has some legend. we find the truth in the legend.
Hello again, I'm Joanna Skye, and here at Montana State University in Bozeman, Montana, I've been collecting research on Henry Plummer and his lost treasure. First of all, he was a famous American bandit who was very clever. He held the position of sheriff in 2 towns, Bannack and Virginia City, in order to cover up some of his elaborate heists. On January 10, 1864, Plummer's luck ran out, leaving him with a long walk to the gallows. He tried to weasel his way out and said to know the location of over $300,000 worth of treasure that he'd give in exchange for his life. I've been submerged in books, and it's time now to dive into a walking encyclopedia.
On the one hand, he was described as being a perfect gentleman, a genial, amiable fellow with bearing, with real bearing, his stature, a commanding presence, a really commanding presence, and everybody remarked to that. But on the other hand, there's a characteristic of him that reminds you of a Jekyll and a Hyde. That there's a lot of the Mr. Hyde in him, and I've observed, I thought a lot about this, and I see a kind of bipolarity in his character. People were afraid to death of him. He didn't receive justice in the hands of law. There's virtually no proof that he was a road agent or was affiliated with them. If he were to appear in a Montana court today, I don't think he could have been convicted for those who would charge him with road agency. But he was a killer. He had killed people. And that's another issue. That's another issue.
Looks like there's more mystery and intrigue behind the legend of Henry Plummer than I anticipated. I'm heading now back to Bannack, one of the towns Henry was sheriff of. In 1862, gold was first discovered in Montana, here in Bannack. By 1863, there were more than 3,000 townspeople getting rich quick. Bannack soon became Montana Territory's first capital. This was your typical boom town. Only setback, as fast as this town grew, is as fast as it became a ghost town. Once people heard there was gold to be had in Virginia City, they just left, leaving a life-size time capsule. We're going to open that time capsule and see if we can take a glimpse into the final hours of Henry Plummer's life, as soon as it stops raining. Rain turned into hail, and I quickly found shelter inside Hotel Meade. You know Henry spent a night or 2 here. I wonder if, at the school, Henry had any children that attended class here. Bannack is the perfect place to coin shoot and relic hunt. I decided to go out and spend some time with my metal detector, hoping to find some old coins or relics. A children's playground is the perfect place to coin shoot. Of course, I had to have a little fun. According to Professor Safford, Henry Plummer's reputation holds true, although there is no proof that he led the gang known as the Road Agents. So could he really know where $300,000 in gold is buried? I need to keep investigating. Bannack is filled with amazing relics, as you can see from this wonderful display of artifacts behind me. The town, however, doesn't have too many coins, and a ranger just told me the reason why. There actually was no hard currency in Bannock. People actually traded with gold nuggets or gold flakes. They would use them to purchase their flour, dresses, clothing, whatever they needed. And with no currency, there was no bank in town, which means that people were holding on to their gold. So I bet that under some of these houses, under the hardwood floors, in the kitchen, or either in the bedroom, there's probably some gold still there. If you do go treasure hunting, please don't forget to check with City Hall or the local law enforcement about the rules and regulations if you go coin shooting or treasure hunting. Just one thing to make sure you always follow, and ask permission if you're not on your own property. The night Henry Plummer was hung, he was in his home, probably similar to the one that we're in right now. One account said he was even in the middle of shaving when the vigilantes stormed in, took him away, made his wife worry, and for a good reason, because the vigilantes took him down Main Street through the town and down the long walk to the gallows. This would be the last time that Henry Plummer was in the comfort of his own home. There were two places where people lived in the town of Bannock: Yankee Flats on the other side, and then of course on this side of town. It is believed that Henry Plummer lived on this side of town. This walk is a little eerie. This is exactly where Henry Plummer would have pleaded for his life in exchange for the location of the hidden gold. This here's Main Street, the only street in town. The only other path is this one, leading to the gallows. A path you hope you never have to take. With the information that I've gathered so far, it seems as though Henry did not get a fair trial, which makes me wonder if the vigilantes just wanted to get rid of him, or make an example of him, or was there some other reason? I can't believe it. Right here, this is where Henry died. I'll show you where $300,000 of gold is buried if you let me live. Those were the final words of Henry Plummer before the vigilantes strangled him here at these gallows. Ironically, Plummer built these gallows. Little did he know he was building a device that would aid in his own death. 150 years have since passed since the day when a man died and a legend was born. Today, I'm leaving Gallatin Gateway Inn to see what I can learn about this legend in Virginia City, the other town Henry Plummer was sheriff of. In the mid-1920s, the inn was built by 500 men in just 4 months. Its main purpose? To refresh weary travelers on their way to Yellowstone National Park. The opening, with an estimated 20,000 in attendance, was so grand, the newspaper headlines the next day overshadowed even the flight of Lindbergh. Gallatin Gateway Inn is as beautiful inside as it is out. I just arrived to Virginia City, Montana, the town where the vigilantes formed, by way of the Virginia City Overland Stage Line. This stagecoach is a replica, built in 1994, and one that visitors can ride on daily to get a glimpse of Virginia City and learn about the history. This is how most people arrived to the town of Virginia City from Bannock in 1863. This town was a boom town, though, and unlike Bannock, which is a ghost town, this town is alive and well, and today boasts one of the largest collections of preserved buildings from the Old West. From Virginia City Trading Company to the blacksmith, and let's not forget the saloon, it's all still here, just like it was 150 years ago. time now to talk to John Ellingson from the Virginia City Chamber of Commerce to see what he can share with us on the legend of Henry Plummer.
Henry Plummer, on the surface, seemed to be a well-mannered, very sophisticated type of person. He was actually a professional gambler. He seemed to dress well, look good. I take the traditional view of Henry Plummer that he was a pretty bad guy. He probably, some of the things that some others may think are misconceptions are what I probably believe are quite true. The road agents were Henry Plummer's, or various theories on it. The road agents were a band of robbers, or highwaymen might be another name for it, the bad guys. The road agents committed many murders, and that was what the hangings were actually for. There were, according to tradition, up to at least 100 murders by the road agents in a course of about 100 days, or a murder per day. This is a terrible murder rate for a population of around 5,000. And many of the murders were not well documented, but the story around at the time was that at least this many people had been murdered.
On January 10, 1864, just 4 days after Plummer's execution, the vigilantes used the center beam of this building to hang 5 road agents. With over 2,000 people watching, the vigilantes quickly set the tone for the way this lawless town should be run. I'm at Boot Hill, Virginia City's first cemetery. Although there are many unmarked graves here, the most prominent still remaining are those of the 5 road agents hung by the vigilantes just at the bottom of this hill.
Henry Plummer has been fairly consistently identified as a ladies' man in the sense of publicly being polite to the women, tipping his hat, smiling, being outgoing and pleasant. He was very popular. He was elected sheriff, and later on, the Union League, all of whom were Unionists, elected him to be the marshal, but the person who founded the vigilantes wouldn't give him the position. There were 2 major purposes in the vigilantes, and both of them were relatively hidden. One was to stop these murders and robberies that were going on, and that was probably necessary. The second one was that the majority here were Southerners, and amid the Southerners, many of whom were deserters and deserters from the Union Army as well, were evidently agents of the Southern government. And their purpose was to take the gold south. Essentially, you've got 2 guys fighting a war, and they don't have any money. So they printed money, but they still don't have any money because it's not backed. So the desperate need was to have gold and silver to back that money in order to be able to buy arms and material and pay salaries, but arms and material from France and England and from corporations in this country.
I believe there's the gold buried near Robbers Roost?
No, I think all the gold went to Richmond to support the South in the war. And then I like to have fun with Robbers Roost. That's where Henry Plummer and his gang divided up the gold. The only problem is that the building was built after Henry Plummer was hung. So that kind of goes along with all the rest of the myth as far as I'm concerned.
Here I am at Robbers Roost. This is the spot where Henry Plummer and his gang, the road agents, hung out. They supposedly sat inside, drank some beer, shot some people, and of course, romanced the ladies. They weren't the only gang to come through here, though. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid were also known to stop here at Robber's Roost on their route through Montana. Now this is the place where Plummer supposedly buried his cache of gold. If there is gold, I'm within 100 yards of what would be worth $8 million today. Yet some accounts say that Robber's Roost, the building, was not actually built until after Plummer and his gang were already hung. So how could it be possible for them to hang out here if the building's not here? Yet another account says that even though the building wasn't here, Plummer still hid his gold within 100 yards of this area. And if he did, I'm having a tough time finding a tree or a boulder, something significant that he would hide his gold under so that he'd be able to relocate it. I chatted a little while with the owner of a small rock shop located inside the Roost, who was also kind enough to show me around, and that's when I found out. A large amount of gold was discovered close to this property some time ago, yet was never declared to anyone. Could this be Henry's gold? We may never know. It seems the truth to this legend may forever rest with Henry Plummer, which is why it will continue to be one of the great lost legends of the West. I'm Joanna Skye, and I'll see you next week.